Welcome to the SBR NHL Ice Guys. I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. We've got game two of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight, Washington, Vegas, as the Stanley Cup Finals continues with Vegas leading the series 1-0 after a 6-4 win in game one, joined by Andrew McGinnis, Alex B. Smith, hopefully Dana Lane momentarily as he deals with some camera issues. Hoping to have him on in a few moments. Guys, let's get right to business. Game two, Washington, Vegas. Vegas laying a $1.50 at home. The total 5.5 across the board. Heading into this second game, I'm going to start with my opinions first. Very, very brief though. Don't have anything on this game from a side perspective. Obviously, the Washington Capitals are going to come away from game one feeling that it was a missed opportunity. I thought they played a pretty solid, reasonable game. On the road, considering how tough the Golden Knights have been at T-Mobile Arena. But Washington just made a few mistakes, a few gaffes defensively, especially when you look at the game-winning goal from Thomas Nosek that gave the Golden Knights that win by the go-ahead goal that stood up as the game-winning goal, and they ended up winning that game 6-4. Just a few mistakes that Washington made really cost them in that game. It was a weird game one. It really, really was. There was a lot of miscues by both teams, a lot of sloppiness. Obviously, we talked about the maybe potential rust factor for the two goalies, Braden Holtby and Marc-Andre Fleury, and I think maybe we saw that on display a little bit in game number one. The weird thing about it is there was mostly a bunch of depth forwards, grinders that scored a lot of these goals in game one. Thomas Nosek, Ryan Reeves, Brett Connolly. There was a lot of those kind of guys that were scoring for both teams in game one. It was not so much the big guns. A lot of them were silent in game one. Jonathan Marchessault didn't score. Obviously, Ovechkin was pretty quiet in game number one. So it was an odd game from that standpoint. A lot of the depth players are the ones that got on the score sheet. That was a little bit of a peculiar thing. And a peculiar thing, too, was all the goals, usually in the playoffs, for you to get a game of 6-4 in any playoff game, 10 goals combined, you need a lot of power play goals and a lot of power play opportunities. That wasn't the case in game one. You had 10 goals, and most of them were 5-on-5 even strength. There was only one power play between the two teams combined in game one. Each team had one power play. That was it. So a lot of it was 5-on-5, which was very surprising. It's just one of those times when where the defensive play was so shoddy that even at 5-on-5, there was a lot of open ice to be had and a lot of areas to put the puck in to get good opportunities on net. So from a total standpoint, uh, it's a weird dynamic for me because I was thinking I was going to go under here in game two, uh, and I was also thinking this game would be opening at 6 from a totals perspective. It didn't. It stayed at 5.5. And the conundrum I have is even though I think both teams are going to aim to tighten things up, I think it's safe to assume we're going to get more penalties tonight. And another thing I noticed too is that it was the Wes McCauley, Mark Jeanette crew that did game one. They were the two refs. Those two refs usually let things go. I mean, Wes McCauley is now built up a little bit of a track record in history now, especially in this year's playoffs, where he doesn't call a bunch of penalties. There's not a ton of whistles in his games that he officiates. I'm not expecting him to be a ref this game tonight. Usually they switch the crews. There's usually two crews in the Stanley Cup Finals, and they'll sometimes go back and forth. So you may not see him tonight, but regardless, I don't think you're going to see just one power play apiece from both of these teams here in this game tonight. I think you're going to see more chippiness. Of course, there's Tom Wilson getting into the headlines in game one with that hit, open ice hit on Jonathan Marchessault. So it was a little late. There's no question about that, but it wasn't overly dirty either. It was late, but it was not aimed to the head. I've had bigger problems with hits than that one, but obviously Vegas is going to have an issue with it because it's Jonathan Marchessault, who's been one of their best players, arguably their best player. They're not going to want anybody taking runs at him. So I think because of that, you're going to see a little bit of a physical carryover into game two tonight. You could see some chippiness, more penalties, more power plays. So I'm going to take a shot again over 5.5 tonight. I don't like it as much as I did in game one. I really like that over in game one. It's a big, big play for me. Not so much this time. It's going to be a smaller size play, but we'll go over the total here, 5.5 minus 110. From a side perspective, I'm going to stand out of this one. Vegas is 7-1 at home here in this year's playoffs. They've just been fantastic. Just one home playoff loss. And I know Zigzag Theory says Washington, especially considering they played well enough to win in game one, they may bounce back. You know what I said in the last show and in previous shows. I am almost done betting against the Vegas Golden Knights at any point in time, especially here at home, especially in a situation where, again, I need something gargantuan to put a reason and to financially go against this squad right now. And I'm not sure I've got that here in game two. So I'm just going to stick with over 5.5 here, which you can get at -105 at bookmaker/Chris, -110 in other spots. But you shouldn't get any worse than -110 with the over 5.5 here in game number two. Let's go to Alex B. Smith to get us going here. Vegas and Washington in game two thoughts. Betting wise, Alex, and just your thoughts overall. What are you looking at heading into tonight?
Well, game one, I got to give all of us, a round of applause and some credit because I think we all really nailed, how game one was going to go down. I mean, I was fortunate enough to cash in the first period over. We got 4 goals in the first period, and like I said, it was an absolute, goal fest. 10 goals overall, and like I said, none of them were power play based for the most part. We didn't see a lot of penalties called. It was a pretty tight, tight 5-on-5 game for the most part. Calls weren't being made, and like I said, there was a lot of hits that were let go. Not just the Tom Wilson hit, but you had TJ Oshie had a hit that might have been called for interference. There were a couple of hits that I saw that would have been called interference probably in the regular season or in a different playoff game, but they were pretty much let go in this game. So it's going to be weird to see in games like this. I thought we were going to see a total of 6 as well. You have 10 goals usually, and we've been bookmakers haven't been shy at all to put up a 6 during the playoffs. I thought for sure we'd see a 6, highly juiced to the over, and I was looking to play that under. But now at 5.5, like you said, the fact that we're going to see a chippier game, I think we're going to see more calls. I'm hoping that we see Reeves and Wilson drop the gloves and fight because I think that's the best way to answer back with the Wilson hit. As far as the NHL didn't suspend or fine Wilson. I think that was the right call there. But it was definitely an interference call, and it was a pretty dirty hit on a player that wasn't looking for any contact. So hopefully Ryan Reeves can do his job, his main job, and take care of that early in this game. But the only thing I'm looking at here, I said Vegas and 5. I'm still rolling with that, so I'd probably take Vegas plus 115 on the regulation line. I don't think we're going to see an overtime game here. I would expect the defenses. I think the defenses were rustier than the goaltending. Uh, we saw Fleury and Holtby both make some huge saves. So the rustiness I think came from most of the defensemen. You saw Washington. Some of the passes that were cross ice between the centers, they had a ton of wide open net chances that just didn't go in on Fleury because of the passing was so clean and crisp in the first, at least the first 2 periods to play. So I think we see that cleaned up a little bit, and I think that might lean to the under. But I'm staying away from the total here. The only thing I'm looking at here would be the Golden Knights plus 115 in regulation to take a 2-0 lead going into DC for Game 3.
Yeah, definitely Golden Knights plus 115. It's usually anywhere from plus 105 to plus 115 is what I'm seeing now with Vegas to win in regulation. So again, SBRodds.com. That's where you want to go. Shop around, look for the best of the number wherever possible. That's exactly where you should be doing your line shopping. SBRodds.com gives you the complete Vegas and offshore picture in terms of widely available lines and numbers for every single game. So Alex likes the Vegas Golden Knights in regulation. Yeah, I mean, I think you will see more penalties tonight. I do. And you're right about the defense being rustier than the goalies. I think there were more defensive lapses than bad goaltending causing the goals in game number one. You look at the John Carlson goal that he scored coming in off the point, a great pass, obviously, but nobody in a Golden Knight jersey had Carlson coming in from the point there, and he was wide open to take that pass and put it in practically an empty net for one of the Washington goals. Those kind of miscues. I mean, wide open in front of the net was who? Riley Smith on one of the Vegas goals as well. So right there in front of the net, nobody covering him, just total blown coverage in both defensive zones last in game one for both teams. So that was probably more of the reason for the goal outburst than any kind of weak goaltending from either side. I agree with that. Andrew McGinnis, let's get to you. Washington and Vegas game two. What is interesting you here from a betting standpoint?
Yeah, exactly. I think last game what we saw was an absolute kind of a disappointing fall down for that Washington Capitals team. I think, like you mentioned, Ian, a good phrase to use in the playoffs during series and especially in a game one, even as far as this Washington Capitals team sits, is the words missed opportunity, and I think that's exactly what you can call that game. I mean, if you can put up that many goals against a goaltender like Marc-Andre Fleury, you can put that much pressure on the defenseman of this Vegas Golden Knights team. You can work that hard to establish consistent pressure throughout an entire game, guys. And all of a sudden, Vegas still has that extra much, like a little bit more pressure, a little bit more will to win, it seemed, and they're able to get the job done. I got to give respect to Alex. I mean, he's got massive balls taking that Vegas in 5, and I hope it does hit for you, Alex, because you know what, like the way that I saw that first game go, if there was ever going to be a game where Washington came out and had one of their best games, and I'm not talking about defensively, I just mean offensively without Ovechkin having a hat trick or something like that. I mentioned it on our first show together. Guys, I don't think that it's as important for the Vegas Golden Knights for their top line to excel as it is for this Washington Capitals team to excel. And Ian and I were obviously on different sides as far as the total goes, and I'm happy for Ian, cashing the over bet. But there's two things that either a long break can do. A long break can either bring out some rust and then come out slow and try and experiment a couple things and feel each other out. Or what actually can happen where not only the goaltending is a little bit shaky, but realistically the defensemen aren't ready. They haven't had that actual game readiness, that game type style play, and all of a sudden all shit hits the fan, and it's a 2-2 game at the end of the first. And I'm very tempted to almost make an over first period 1.5, but what I'm going to do is just go to Vegas in regulation. I think that if Washington's going to make themselves back in this series, if they're going to make a name for themselves in this series, put a dent in this series, it's going to be at home, guys. It's going to be when they travel back to Washington in that game 1. If anything, I'm curious to see. Obviously it'll be variant depending on the result of tonight's game, but I will be curious to see what the line will be, guys. Game 1 over in Washington, so game 3. But yeah, I think totally. If you look at these numbers, you look at the guys that scored. I tweeted about it and I mentioned it, and I'm not even trying to make it sound like a joke, but you've got guys, if you've got guys like Reeves consistently getting on the scoreboard now or making an impact, when you got a fourth line that makes as much of an impact as this Golden Knights team does, whether it's just having a great shift, putting a lot of pressure, lots of hard hits, getting onto the other team's skin or getting lots of shots or shutting down a team's line, whatever it is, a goal, that's what it's all about. All 4 lines working together. And I think when you look at this Washington team, you got Conley scoring, you got Carlson scoring, okay, Wilson scoring, of course. But, when it comes down to it, I think that unless Ovechkin and Kuznetsov and Bobrovsky, guys like that, or, they show up, they're not going to be successful. I just don't think that this team collectively has what it takes to take on this Vegas Golden Knights team through an entire series. This Golden Knights team was just a little bit step higher. And we got to say, guys, I mean, Ian, we talked about it. Alex, you talked about it all year long. Golden Knights allow 4 goals. How many times are we going to see Fleury let in 4 goals in back-to-back games? That over could still hit tonight. Don't get me wrong, but I just don't think that Fleury is going to have nearly as that performance that he had 2 nights ago. For that reason, I'm on Vegas Golden Knights in regulation.
All right, Vegas in regulation ×2. Alex and Andrew both looking in that route tonight. Yeah, again, there might be a time right now where I'm willing to look at Washington, but it's not anytime soon. Like I say, it's got to be something significant in terms of value, price point, or situation for me to get involved with backing Washington here tonight. So you guys are on the Vegas regulation line as your primary wager here in game 2, primary betting opinion. Mine is going to be over 5.5 -110. One more time. Again, I fully expected 6 to be the total here tonight. I really did. I mean, I thought no brainer. You see 6-4 in game 1. You push this total up to 6. That's what we saw in the Pittsburgh series earlier in these playoffs. We've seen it with Tampa. We've seen it with a bunch of the Washington, Columbus. Eventually, that series in the first round got to 6 for totals. After a few high-scoring games. That's not the case here. We're still getting 5.5. And again, you had so much production offensively, 5-on-5, with only 1 power play apiece. There's going to be more penalties tonight. You can write that down. There will be more penalties. There will be more power plays tonight. You could still get a 5.5. So I've got to take that value with the lack of adjustment, which I think is erroneous. This should be 6 after a 6-4 game the other night. We'll take that over 5.5 here in game number 2 here tonight, as we're trying to get Dana going, and his camera's acting like a bitch. We don't like it one bit, what it's doing. But we're hoping that you can. Dana, are you in with us? Can you hear us at least?
Well, I can hear you for sure. I don't know what's going on with this thing. Time for an external camera, maybe.
All right. Well, hopefully we get Dana's audio at least is good. It sounds like. Let's get him in here. Let's get his thoughts. Game 2, Dana. What do you like tonight?
Well, I got to tell you guys, I mean, this is going to be the first time, I mean, if you're going to try a plus price with the Washington Capitals, you got to think that tonight is the night. I mean, I've said a million times that the greatest adjustment is between games 1 and 2, and certainly if they lose this game, we know the history is that 90% of the time that a team that goes down 2-0 loses the series. So you have to think that Washington's going to have their best effort tonight, and especially if they get ahead. I mean, I think that's going to be absolutely huge, and then maybe Washington can go into perhaps like a 1-3-1 and try to play this a little bit differently. And I know the video is crazy, and I apologize. But hey, listen, guys. I mean, there was a few defensive breakdowns from Vegas the other night, which led to capital goals, and I think that's exactly what has to happen in order for Vegas to be successful. That Washington has to have puck movement in all zones of the on the ice, and why it's so difficult to play against the Golden Knights is that they force you to be perfect on that movement in their defensive end and the neutral zone and then the offensive end. And that's why Vegas is so effective. And, I said the other night, I said, guys, we always come up with ways that speed is such an advantage. And we saw it the other night, just a simple dump into Braden Holtby. He was scared and wanted that puck off his stick as quickly as possible. And in doing so, turned the puck over, which led to a goal. The other thing is, Devontae Smith-Pelly, the same thing. Wanted to get that puck out of the zone as quickly as possible.
And Dana has wow, frustrating as hell, isn't it? Well, you know what? Someone mentioned in the chat there's TVs like the '90s television. You're right. When it doing that, it reminded me of back in the day when I was like 6 years old and I'm banging on the top of the TV, bang, bang, get that picture tube working again. And that's exactly what it looked like there for me. Yeah, exactly. That's unfortunate. Hopefully we get Dana in one last time. I think he was leaning at Washington. That's just what I got. To take a chance. The situation dictates they don't want to go down 2-0 in this series back home. I think he was leaning with the Capitals at a plus price, if I'm not mistaken there. But if we can get Dana back in, we'll see if he can confirm that. But I'm pretty sure that sounded like the direction he was thinking. Let's get to goal scoring props here, because we always want to get on those. You got to look at these, especially when you're down to the finals. Hey, you have some fun. You sprinkle on a couple of these. I'm more thinking of going more top heavy here. I heard Dana's breathing there, I think there. We've got Ovechkin plus 105 is kind of interesting. I mean, it's not a great value, but I think he's a guy that's got to stand out as someone that's got to come alive and do something offensively, score a big goal tonight. Plus 105 with Ovechkin kind of makes some sense to me. Alex Tuch's, again, a great value when most of his goals have been at home here in these playoffs, and that might be something I'd take one more stab at with plus 375 on him. Marchessault, I think, plus 150. Those are the three that look interesting to me. Ovechkin plus 105, Marchessault plus 150, and Tuch at plus 375. Dana, if you can hear me and if you're still there, just give us your final take here on this game too, betting wise.
Yeah, you were right about that. I mean, I really apologize, guys. If I have to get an external camera, I'll go get one. I don't know what's going on, but yeah, I'm going to take a shot with Washington plus $1.40. I can get that locally. I think it's plus $1.30, 35 other places. But this is going to be the best effort I feel like out of Washington. I mean, it absolutely has to be. And if it's not, the series is completely over. So, and I'm not too sure if you're going to get plus $1.40 again, even if the series comes back to Vegas, you know, 3-1, you might 2-2. I'm not sure you will. So I mean, I'll take advantage of this. Let the professionals do their job. Let Barry Trotz make their adjustments. You've got to get Ovechkin involved. You've got to get Backstrom involved. And I know Backstrom had a goal, but that was his only shot on net. And in fact, in the last 42 minutes of play for Alexander Ovechkin, Alex has only had 3 shots on goal. So they've done a great job of containing him. So listen, Vegas is the better of the team. I said they're going to win the Stanley Cup. There's no reason to get off of that, but I see a real betting opportunity to get on the Capitals tonight, and cross your fingers that they've made the correct adjustments.
I wouldn't mind a Washington win tonight, just because I know for a fact if Washington wins tonight, I've been riding Marc-Andre Fleury and this Vegas team off a loss throughout the playoffs. That's going to be almost. You want people in the chat? You're not betting these sides. Why not? Well, guess what? If you get a Washington win tonight, I'll almost assuredly be looking at Vegas in Game 3 off this loss if it happens tonight. So yeah, you might get a side bet out of me at some point here in this series. So if you're hoping and praying for that, cheer for Washington tonight because you'll probably see it. Yeah, goal scoring props, you guys. Andrew, Alex, anything that looks interesting to you that you might want to take a shot at, just a sprinkle on tonight?
Yeah, well, I've just got a couple here, and I kind of agree with you with plenty of the things that you said, Ian. But yeah, Jonathan Marchessault, plus 150. It's not too much value, but I think he'll light the lamp tonight. Obviously, Ovechkin, you're getting like plus 105, plus 110. Realistically, is that a great number to take for a prop for anyone to score? Probably not, but I think if there was a game where he'd have to come out with at least one goal, too bad you couldn't really make a specific bet on a power play goal. You probably get some good value on that. I think that if they do get some power play opportunities, he will be the guy to score. I'm also looking at TJ Oshie, plus 300. And yeah, I kind of do have to agree with you with Alex Tuch. Yeah, he's at plus 375. So those are the three that I'll go with.
All right, very good, very good. Alex, any from you before we wrap it up?
Yeah, well, the shop that I have, they've got, I've got a couple players that are listed for total goals scored at a half a goal, and then there's somewhere it's total points recorded. So for Alexander Ovechkin, I can get over a half a goal at plus 155, and William Karlsson over a half a goal at plus 160. Those are both plays I would take a look at. But I also like James Neal over a half for goals and assists at plus 120. I think he's going to be involved one way or another, either finding the back of the net or getting an assist at some point. So I think those are all three really good plus prices for guys. Like I said, all key guys that would need to get involved for their respective clubs to win this game tonight.
All right, very good. All right, always good to look at those. Again, when you're down to the Stanley Cup Finals, you want to throw in a couple little recreational entertainment sized wagers, and I stress that entertainment purposes only with the goal scoring prop market. But if you have that ability and access to do that, definitely a lot of fun going into this game. Dana, if we've still got you, we'll give you one last chance to give final thoughts, and then we'll wrap things up.
Yeah, as far as the goal scoring prop, I don't see it. I'm looking at it now because it's usually not something I get involved in. But, man, obviously you want to be on the side of the team that you like. And if I like Washington, I would love to see. I don't see anything from Andrei Burakovsky on here. So, perhaps that's not available. Nick Backstrom, I know that, he was dealing with an injury. So that might be a guy I'm looking at. TJ Oshie, like Andrew had mentioned as well, might be a guy I would look at. But honestly, I mean, it's not too. I know you're not looking for plus 105 on these things, but a guy like Kuznetsov. I mean, if Washington's going to win these games, Kuznetsov and that and that that top line has to be absolute. I mean, the Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, Tom Wilson line, I can't believe he's on the top line, certainly has to be the best line tonight. I mean, I just don't see, lines 3 and 4 giving you much, because I think what happens is as the game goes on, and if it's tied or even if Washington is behind, you're going to start leaning on those top 6 guys a little bit more, which would basically take away minutes from Lars Eller and Jay Beagle and all their line, which I don't know if there's any numbers on them of not, but certainly Kuznetsov would be a guy that I would look at from the Washington Capitals as a option to bet to score. I think he can get plus 185, which is fine with me.
Yeah, exactly. Kuznetsov, Ovechkin. Yeah, Kuznetsov was one of those honorable mentions, I guess you could say. He's one that I didn't. You got to eventually at some point say enough's enough. You got to hone in on 2 or 3 guys. You don't want to be betting 6, 7, 8 guys to score. But yeah, he's an honorable mention. He didn't make my top 3 cut. Ovechkin, I put him ahead of Kuznetsov, but Kuznetsov's not a bad option whatsoever if you're looking at, in that direction for sure. And again, if you go on down the list, there's some, Devontae Smith-Pelly scored a couple goals lately. That's plus 1,100. I mean, that's going real digging deep into the bargain bin, but you never know. You even saw Colin Miller score a power play goal to get game 1 started, and you can get him at plus 550. So, and that's a guy that's not scared to shoot the puck from the point. And I think that's why, from a defensive perspective, he's up there as high as he is at plus 550. 50-50, in terms of he's higher up there than a lot of forwards for both teams. So Colin Miller's a guy that's not scared to shoot
Hey,
the
Ian,
puck either. So yeah,
is there a number on Tomas Nosek? I wouldn't think so, but geez, too bad there isn't. Because if you don't
there
have,
isn't.
if
Yeah,
you're looking at Reeves, too bad you're not looking at Reeves and Nosek and even Ballmeyer. I mean, didn't had an assist. I mean, he's lighting it up from as far as the assist is concerned in the postseason. Couldn't buy one in the regular season, but I mean, my God, Nosek's got 4 points in his last 5 games, including 3 goals. Too bad there's not a prop on him.
no, there isn't. The deepest forward on the prop list for goal scoring is Ryan Carpenter, and you can't get a damn thing, unfortunately, from him. So, what a waste that is. Why don't we have someone else other than Carpenter there? Where's Belmar, Nosek, and Reeves at this point? We don't even see Reeves' name on here, for crying out loud. I mean, unless I got to look maybe somewhere else. But yeah, right now, no Ryan Reeves. When you're starting to see him, again, as the series and the playoffs get more physical, the deeper you go, it gives an opportunity for a guy like Ryan Reeves to maybe chip in with some of those dirty type goals. And we've seen that now from him multiple games recently here for the Vegas Golden Knights. But I'm looking at a book right now in a shop that doesn't have him listed unless another place does. But right now, not seeing that for Ryan Reeves. That's disappointing because you're right. You'd get a good price there, and he's had that ability.
Well, Ryan Carpenter doesn't. I mean, he doesn't. He's got 2 assists, but in recent form. But I mean, it's not like the guy hasn't gotten picked pucks to the net. I mean, he's had 8 shots on net in about under 15 minutes of play. So I mean, even though and I'm sorry, I don't remember if he had a number or not, but if he did, I mean, even though he hasn't had nothing to show for it, he's certainly getting shots on net. I mean, we talked about James Neal in that same way, and I mean, honestly, Ryan Carpenter's getting more shots on net than Eric Halla is at this point.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, Eric Howell has been quiet. Perron has been, very, very silent here throughout these playoffs. So it's been a situation where, you're just not getting those two guys in particular to get things going just a little bit. And like I'm saying in the chat, I mean, I do believe it's a law of averages, gut feeling for me, and thought with that. But we should see more power plays tonight. You only had one power play opportunity for each side in game one, and that Wes McCauley crew, as I said. They're very, very they don't, they let the play breathe a little bit. They let things go a little bit. So if you get a different ref or two tonight, that could be another reason to expect more whistles and more penalties called on both sides. So that's definitely something I anticipate. Power play and penalty kills are going to be a lot more of a bigger factor and a more determining factor tonight, in my opinion, than they were in game one. All right, that's going to wrap up. We're going to wrap it up. We want to keep it to about 30 minutes here for these Stanley Cup Finals shows since we're down to just one game left. Great show. Thanks to everyone for tuning in. Thanks to my colleagues, Alex, Andrew, and Dana for joining us. Hopefully Dana in full video form for our next show Friday, 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 a.m. Pacific. We'll be back to talk Game 3 of the Stanley Cup Finals as the scene will shift to D.C. in the nation's capital for the third game of this series. We'll break that all down for you on Friday. For Alex, Andrew, and Dana, I'm Ian Cameron for Sportsbook Review. Enjoy Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Finals tonight. We'll see you again on Friday.